Number 3. Chrisdian Johnson. Since the late 1990s, pit bulls have mainly been banned in Britain. People who already had pit bulls were given heavy restrictions. If people did want to get them, they had to apply for exceptions and follow strict rules. At the start of the 2000s, Metropolitan Police were seizing, on average, 42 illegal dogs yearly. But by the mid-2000s, those numbers started to increase drastically as gangs began to use the dogs to maim their rivals. And by 2010, 1,200 dogs were seized on average. On April 27, 2009, 16-year-old Ozagazi Yugami was walking through Larkhill Park in London with his friends, 17-year-old Haru Hayabu and two other friends who were 17 and 15. As the teens walked through the park, they were confronted by 15 to 20 members of a South London street gang. When the confrontation turned violent, Ozawazi and Haru ran from the group. After trying to climb a fence, the gang's leader, 22-year-old Chrisdian Johnson, sent two dogs, Tyson and Mia, to chase after the teens. Tyson, a bull terrier bull mastiff mix, grabbed Ozawazi, and as the dog wrestled him to the ground, Johnson stabbed him 6 times. Ozawazi died at the scene. Haru was stabbed 9 times. Haru ultimately survived. The other 2 teenagers were also stabbed and bitten by the dogs, but they were not seriously injured. During the chaos, Tyson, the dog, was also stabbed twice. After the attack, Johnson, his 2 dogs, and his gang took off. Tyson left a 60-yard trail of blood dripping from his mouth. 13 minutes after the attack, the police caught Johnson as he walked down the street, bare-chested and covered in blood. DNA tests showed that most of the blood in the dog's mouth belonged to the victims. Some blood belonged to the dog itself. Investigators used DNA samples to match blood from the dog to the crime scene, the first time this was used as evidence in a British court. Medical examiners concluded that the fatal stab wound was under Unagami's right arm as it cut the aorta, causing extreme bleeding. They also found dog bites on his right calf, thigh, and shoulders. During his 2012 trial, Johnson was found guilty of murder and attempted murder. In April 2012, a British court sentenced him to life in prison with a minimum of 24 years. The presiding judge accused Johnson of using a dog to bring down his prey. Following the verdicts, one inspector said Unagami didn't stand a chance against the dog attack. Unagami suffered from Crohn's disease and weighed less than 100 pounds. The inspector said the horrific attack was committed on a very slight teenage boy who stood no chance of defending himself. The fact that Chrisdian Johnson also ordered dogs to take part in the attack illustrates his sickening attitude towards violence. When you mix dogs and knives, you really have a lethal combination, as in this case. Unagami's parents said that their son was not involved in gangs. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. In 2007, a couple years before the murder, Chrisdian Johnson was given a special exemption to own the dog. Johnson had agreed to have it chipped, tattooed, and insured. When he was in public with the dog, it was supposed to be on a leash and wear a muzzle. The police applied to have the dog put down, but it's unclear what happened to him after Johnson was sentenced. Number 2. Henry Thomas. 2-year-old Alika Esa-Bella Shaikh Gonzalez's favorite things were Dora the Explorer, the color purple, her toy monkey, and dandelions. In the spring of 2014, the toddler lived with her mother, Vanessa Gonzalez, and 3 siblings in North Vancouver, British Columbia. Vanessa said she was the sweetest child ever. She was so funny, she was so bubbly, she was so bossy, she was so smart. On the night of May 18, 2014, Vanessa's boyfriend, 51-year-old Henry James Thomas, was taking care of Alika. Early the next morning, Thomas returned Alika to her mother. Several hours later, around 5 a.m. on May 19th, Vanessa called 911 and told the dispatcher that her baby was dead. First responders arrived at the apartment. The 2-year-old had bruises all over her body. One question, Thomas said that the toddler fell down the stairs. But the police didn't believe that and suspected foul play. In July 2015, they searched Thomas's home. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, known as the acronym RCMP, found illegal snakes and related equipment on his property. DNA testing was conducted in 2016 and 2017. This led the RCMP to contact Professor Steve McKenzie, a biology teacher and snake expert from the University of Northern Colorado. When they called, McKenzie was in a remote area of Colorado that didn't have cell service. He told CBS News, "There were some messages on my cell phone. One of these was from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and at first I thought, okay, someone is trying to prank me here. We didn't really start working with snakes and snake venom with the intent of going into forensics." McKenzie and his students studied snake venom to see if it could help fight cancer and high blood pressure. To send evidence across the border, the RCMP had to get several clearances. Some of the evidence that was sent to McKenzie were samples of the deceased, snake skin, snake venom, and syringes with residue in them. McKenzie and his students tested samples and identified the venom found in the child's system. It belonged to snakes that were on Thomas's property. Naproxen, an anti-inflammatory drug, was also found in the child's system. The RCMP then questioned Thomas. He confessed to injecting the child with snake venom. He got the idea because he had been injecting himself with snake venom because he thought it would boost his immune system. In January 2019, nearly 5 years after the death of 2-year-old Alika, authorities arrested Thomas and charged him with failing to provide the necessities of life. He pleaded guilty in July 2019. 2 months later, in December 2019, he was sentenced to 8 months in jail and 2 months of probation. Alika's family was outraged that it took almost 5 years to arrest Thomas. Vanessa Gonzalez also didn't believe the punishment was severe enough. Vanessa said poisoning her with snake venom isn't failing to provide the necessities of life. It's not fair. My whole world fell apart. After Alika's death, social services took away Vanessa's other 3 daughters. It was last reported that she was trying to regain custody of her children. Number 1. Jeffrey Mann. Angela Kaplan referred to her pit bull, Mac, as her head of security. Kaplan met Mac and his owner, Jeffrey Mann, while hitchhiking in 1988. Kaplan was recently divorced and had lost custody of her 2 children. Mann and Kaplan started dating and eventually moved in together. The couple had met in Arizona but then settled in Cleveland, Ohio in 1988. In 1992, after about 5 years of being together, their relationship started to sour. Around 10 p.m. on September 1st, 1992, Kaplan talked to her mother on the phone. She said she was at her wit's end with Mann and didn't know how much more she could take. She then said she had to hang up and she would call back. Later that night, in the heat of an argument, 35-year-old Jeffrey Mann ordered his 70-pound pit bull, Mac, to maul 28-year-old Angela Kaplan. Kaplan only weighed 20 more pounds than the dog. Kaplan sustained 70 to 150 dog bites, and there were 200 to 300 bruises and scrapes on her body. Mann waited almost 4 hours to call 911. When paramedics arrived around 4 a.m., they found Kaplan's naked body under a bedsheet on the couch in the living room. It was clear she had been dead for hours. Her body was cold, and rigor mortis had started to set in. Blood around her mouth was brown and had started flaking. Shards of a broken drinking glass were found in the living room and the bedroom. Mann was covered in blood and appeared intoxicated. He also had a wound on his forehead that he said was from getting Kaplan water to drink. He said his forehead was cut with a piece of broken glass. Mann initially told the first responders that Kaplan went out for a walk and a dog attacked her. When Kaplan returned, she didn't want to go to the hospital. Mann said they went to sleep. He woke up a few hours later and she was unresponsive. The paramedics noticed that in the house there were pictures of a bulldog. They asked Mann if he had a dog, and he said it was in an upstairs bedroom. One of them went upstairs and touched the doorknob of the bedroom. Suddenly, Max started growling and barking. The paramedics decided not to open the door. Around 8 a.m., homicide detectives came to investigate. The police noticed that most of the bites were on Kaplan's arms. Generally, dogs go for the neck or throat when they attack someone on their own. But Kaplan didn't have any injuries on that part of her body. The detectives noticed that one of the bedroom doors on the main floor was locked. A detective got inside and discovered it was splattered with blood. The detective described it as a butcher shop. They found the shirt Kaplan was wearing that night and it was soaked in blood. The detectives couldn't even determine what color the shirt was because it was so drenched in blood. The police questioned Mann. He told the police a different story than what he told the paramedics. He told them that a strange dog had broken in and attacked her. The police told him that story seemed unlikely, so he changed his story. He claimed he woke up to Mac attacking Kaplan. He said she had a history of seizures, and this may have caused him to attack her. Mann then told them that Kaplan refused to go to the hospital because she thought it could affect her custody dispute with her ex-husband. An animal behaviorist who investigated the case believed that the dog was instigated and re-instigated to attack. Animal experts tested Mac to see if he would attack when provoked, and he did not. The police concluded there was a domestic dispute which started in the bedroom. It appeared that Mann held Kaplan while the dog attacked her. She was then moved from the bedroom where the attack occurred and placed on the living room couch. The police charged Mann with Kaplan's murder in a case that received national attention. It was the first time in U.S. law that a dog was listed as a murder weapon. During Mann's November 1993 trial, his defense team claimed that the dog was unpredictable and got out of control. They said that Kaplan had epilepsy and a seizure may have triggered the dog attack. Prosecutors argued that Mann trained his dog to attack. He used secret commands to have Mac turn on Kaplan. Prosecutors presented photos of Mac lying in Kaplan's lap with a caption on the back referring to him as her head of security. The trial lasted about 2.5 weeks. The jury deliberated for half a day. They found him guilty of murder. Jeffrey Mann was sentenced to 15 years to life and fined $5,000. Over the next 3 decades, Kaplan's family fought to keep him in prison. He was denied parole in 2013. Before Mann's 2018 parole hearing, Kaplan's mother, Joyce Regals, claimed Mann hadn't changed. Regals said, "I don't want him to be able to hurt someone else the way he's hurt my family, and I believe he will." Even retired Cleveland Police Detective Michaeline Taliano shared her concerns. Taliano told a news outlet, "I would say it was the most horrendous form of domestic violence I've ever seen. He has never shown any emotion as far as he is concerned. This was supposed to be the love of his life." Mann was denied parole again. Kaplan's daughter, Nicole, spoke at his March 2023 parole hearing. She said, "I'm 11 years older than my mom was when she was murdered. Age is a privilege that she was denied." Mann was ultimately denied parole. He'll have another parole hearing in March 2025. At the time of this video, 66-year-old Jeffrey Mann is serving a sentence at the Grafton Correctional Institution in Grafton, Ohio. So far, he served 30 years in prison. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Please don't forget to check out our new channel, Paranormally Listed. There's a link on the screen now, and there's a link in the description box below this video. Well, that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.